Hi everyone, welcome to Value. So today we're going to look at Ironnet, and if you've seen on my screen right now, you must be thinking, what on earth just happened over there? Especially in the after hours. After hours is up 75%, which is crazy and also just insane. You look at the normal trading hours, and the stock was already up 23% on normal trading hours. Which is beautiful on any day. You're like, if you see your stock up 23%, you're pretty happy. Never mind looking at the after hours and seeing a 75% gain on top of that. So what the biggest question is, why is this happening? Well, the stock's just got a really small float. If you don't know what a float is essentially the stocks that can be traded on an ongoing basis, that's not restricted in some sense or another. And because they have such a small float, which apparently can be as small as 1.5 million. But if I go by the website MarketWatch, they actually have this float at 7 million shares. So it really depends what figures you're taking along. Apparently that 7 million float could actually be even smaller because some shares have not actually been newly issued yet. But yeah, like it really depends whose source you're taking, of course. But if we take a 7 million float, just to be taking the highest number available in terms of what is available in terms of a float, and if we say there's 7 million shares on offer, and we look at the amount of shares that were traded, 4.4 million shares were traded today. And we consider the whole idea that if 4.4 million shares are traded, that doesn't really leave much, because remember, not everyone buying a stock is looking to trade it. Like, I will buy a stock and I will hold it for a while, and I assume there's going to be a lot of people, particularly with a company like Ironnet, who is pioneering the future of cybersecurity, and you really want to hold the stock for the long run because firstly it's undervalued. Even the company itself considered itself undervalued. They considered that their stock is undervalued compared to their peers by as much as 72%, and that's just based on standard metrics. Never mind that Ironnet is growing at in the next 2 years on average about 96% per year, whereas their competitors are growing around around 30%, and that's most of them. And that's even the next generation ones too, like C3AI, Palantir. So we look at them, and they are by far the fastest growing cybersecurity stock that's available currently. So when you consider that, this stock is hugely undervalued. And then now we have a situation where someone's tapped onto the idea that, hey, actually this stock has an insanely small float, which is the amount of shares that's currently traded. Like, if we look at this presentation, we can see that initially they had 86 million shares on issue, and then they had public shareholders at 17 million shares, sponsor shareholders 3.2 million, and then the PIPE shareholders at 12.5 million. A lot of these shares are either restricted, not issued yet. So at 119 million, this matches up with the shares outstanding on MarketWatch. So we're just going to have to trust that, hey, they got their public float data right as well. And this was in August, the short, the amount that was short was 656,000 shares. So potentially this could be higher or lower because we're in September now. But it just really tells you that if we've got this much short, and we've got about 4.4 million traded, there's really not that much stock to really go around, particularly if a lot of people just decide they just want to hold for the long term. And what I thought was quite interesting, out of that 4.4 million shares that were traded, 2.58 million shares were traded in the after hours. So you see that 2.58 million shares was traded in the after hours. So majority was actually traded, after the market closed, after everyone just saw how well the stock was doing. Because to be honest, this stock is not on a lot of people's radars. A lot of people have not heard of Ironnet, and that's fair game. Like, a lot of people Not even I would have heard about it until I just saw it recently, and wow, it was a outstanding company. So not only is it an outstanding company with a great future, founded by a 4-star retired general who's on the board of Amazon and a former director of the NSA, you gotta be surprised, right? Because you're like, actually, this is a outstanding company, and also we've got a short float, so that just gets the share price rolling very, very quick when momentum starts to come on. And as we're seeing this right now, people are wanting to buy into the stock, and then it's getting a lot of pressure, and then there's no stock available. You just have to pay a higher price at each tier, and that's hence why we're just seeing a massive jump in this stock, because a lot of people want to buy in, a lot of people want to cover, and we're just seeing this nice combination of pressure. And the daily trading was amazing at 23%. You would accept 23% any day, never mind a bonus of 75% in the after hours, though after hours is even a smaller amount of people can trade during the after hours. So you got to remember, not everyone actually has after hour access as well. So when the after hours, there's actually even more pressure because there's even less stock available. And remember, 2.58 million shares were traded in the after hours, where there's even less shares able to be traded because not everyone has that access. It's possibly it might not open that high on when the market opens up after the weekend. Like, it won't open Monday because it's a public holiday, but we'll see on Tuesday potentially what happens. If the stock continues from the 75%, or the 75% was potentially an overreaction. But in general though, like, if we consider that firstly there's about 119 million shares available at the $16.66 price tag, we're looking at about a $2 billion company. At $29, we're looking at about a $3.5 billion valuation for this company. And and based on what I had valued this company, and I saw this company around $3 billion on a fair value basis on the current metrics versus their peers. But considering they're like, the company itself is such a strong, stable, fantastic company going forward, I could see the stock going higher. Like, $3.5 billion would only match the market valuation on a fair value basis, in my view anyway. So even though we're seeing a squeeze and a price just jump up in a massive way, it only really brings us up to a fair value. Like, it's not even massively overvalued at this stage. It's just because the company was just under the radar. No one actually paid attention to it, but I think now that people are paying attention to it, it could be easily re-rated, and the share price could well go higher, like in the near term anyway. Long term, I see it going way higher, or long term, but that's my view as well. But again, with companies that are expected to grow quick and they don't perform on the numbers, then the share price could also be easily hit as well. So it really depends how your view of the company is. But currently, like, I view the company with many aspirations, a lot of great things to happen in the future, and it all looks just amazing. Like, if you're a shareholder, you're probably going to have a fantastic weekend. If you're not a shareholder, you might want to look into the company and potentially put it on your watch list and see what happens in the when next week when the market opens, and see if it's a company that you want to potentially get into or not. Until then, thanks for tuning in, and thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Always a big motivator on my side to continue to produce more of it. Until then, good luck everyone.